I never believed my life would end up in the hands of a man like him. One night, I was driving back from a charity gala, the world still glittering with laughter and champagne, and the next I was bleeding in the dark, headlights fading, breath trembling against the cold. I remember the scent of rain and smoke, the sound of my heartbeat drowning out everything else. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't dead. I was staring at a ceiling to high, silk sheets to soft, and a man whose eyes looked like they'd seen the devil and made a deal with him. His name was Luca Romano, though people whispered it like a curse. "You're safe," he said, his voice rough like gravel. I blinked, confusion swallowing the fear. "Where am I?" He didn't answer right away. He just poured a glass of water and placed it beside me. "Somewhere you shouldn't have been, but you're alive. That's what matters." Even then, I knew there was more to it. Men like him don't save strangers out of mercy. It took me 2 days to remember the explosion, the sound of tires screeching, the black car chasing mine. I was supposed to meet a contact that night, a man who had promised to expose the flow of dirty money through my father's foundation. I had thought I could handle it alone. I was wrong. Luca didn't ask why I was there. He already knew. Power had a way of telling him everything. He was older, maybe mid-30s, with that quiet confidence that comes from surviving too much. There was something in his silence, a kind of calm that made you forget you were in danger until you remembered who he was. I told him I wanted to leave, that I couldn't stay here, that whatever debt he thought I owed him wasn't real. He looked at me then, and I will never forget it. Those dark eyes, heavy with something between warning and sorrow. "If you walk out now, you won't make it to the end of the street," he said. "You can't keep me here." I whispered, my voice shaking more from anger than fear. He smiled faintly, but there was no cruelty in it. "You think I want to? You think I enjoy saving people who remind me of everything I lost?" I didn't know what he meant then. I only knew that I hated him for being calm when my whole world was collapsing. Days passed. He gave me space but never distance. I caught him watching me sometimes, not with hunger, but with study, like he was trying to solve a puzzle. I told myself I despised him for it, but part of me wanted to understand him too. He had a world built on shadows, ships, art, politics, men who bowed when he entered the room. But in private, he was something else entirely, quiet, thoughtful, carrying guilt like a second skin. One night, I found him on the terrace, a glass of whiskey untouched beside him. The city stretched below like a constellation of fire. "Why did you save me?" I asked. He didn't look at me. "Because someone once saved me, and I ruined it." "Who?" He turned then, his expression unreadable. "Someone who believed monsters could change." I should have walked away, but something in his voice broke the part of me that still believed in clear lines between good and evil. As the weeks went by, he stopped taking calls. Meetings were canceled. Rumors spread that Luca Romano was distracted. And maybe he was, by the woman who refused to be afraid of him. He told me once, "Power makes you forget what silence feels like." I told him, "Then maybe that's why you keep talking to me." He didn't deny it. We were two people on opposite sides of a world built from secrets, yet every look, every conversation pulled us closer into something neither of us could stop. I saw the cracks in his armor, and he saw the fire in my defiance. But love doesn't bloom easily in the soil of violence. The night the gunfire came, I was painting near the window. He ran in before the glass even fell, pulling me to the ground. His arms wrapped around me as bullets tore through the walls. I could feel his heartbeat against my back, steady, controlled. When it was over, he didn't let go. "They're coming for me," he said, his voice a whisper against my hair. "And now they'll come for you. Then fight," I said. He shook his head. "I've fought my whole life. I'm tired of blood." "Then change," I said softly. "For once, don't survive, live." His eyes met mine, and I knew that was the moment he broke the one rule every man in his world swore by: never love what you can protect. He kissed me that night, not out of passion, but out of surrender. It was the kind of kiss that tasted like a goodbye neither of us was ready for. By morning, he was gone. The villa was empty except for a single note on the table. It said, "Don't look for me." If I live, I'll find you. And he did. 3 months later, on a quiet street in Florence, I saw him again, alive, but changed. No guards, no gun, no empire. Just a man with tired eyes and a small bouquet of white roses. He smiled, the kind of smile that makes the world hold its breath. And then, behind him, a car slowed. The sound of the engine was the last thing I heard before everything went black. When the world went dark, I thought it was death. But death doesn't sound like your name being shouted in desperation. Amara, that was the first thing I heard when I woke, his voice breaking through the haze, raw, trembling. The air smelled of antiseptic and fear. When my vision steadied, I saw him there, sitting beside the hospital bed, his hand clutching mine like it was the only thing keeping him alive. His knuckles were bruised, his shirt stained, his eyes hollow. "You found me," I whispered, my throat dry. He exhaled, relief and guilt in the same breath. I never stopped. The light above flickered, and for a moment I saw the ghost of the man he used to be. The powerful, ruthless Luca Romano who could make the world tremble with a word. But now there was nothing left of that man. Just a broken one who had traded blood for love. "What happened?" I asked. He hesitated, jaw tight. "The car wasn't random. They were coming for me. You were just in their way." Something inside me cracked. "In your way? I almost died because of you." He looked at me then, and I wished he hadn't, because in his eyes was everything he couldn't say. "I know," he whispered, voice shaking. "And if you had, I wouldn't be sitting here breathing." He didn't move for a long time, just kept holding my hand, like letting go would undo me again. When he finally spoke, it was quiet, the kind of quiet that carried too much pain. I walked away from everything. The business, the money, all of it. "They think I'm dead. And what are you now?" He smiled faintly, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes. "A man trying to deserve you." For days, he stayed by my side. The nurses whispered, curious about the man who never left the room, who slept in a chair, who spoke to no one but me. There were moments I caught him watching the door, hand twitching near his coat, a reflex he couldn't kill. When I was discharged, he took me to the countryside, to a small house surrounded by olive trees and silence. It was nothing like the marble villas or the sharp suits he used to wear. Here, the air was clean, the night soft, and for the first time, Luca looked almost human. He would cook, badly. The first time he tried, he nearly set the kitchen on fire, and I laughed so hard I cried. It became our language, laughter through scars. But even in peace, shadows lingered. Sometimes he would wake in the night, drenched in sweat, whispering names I didn't know. I would hold him, and he'd whisper, "I'm sorry," as if he was begging forgiveness from the ghosts that refused to leave him. One afternoon, we walked by the vineyard, the sun low and golden. He stopped, turned to me, and said, "You shouldn't have stayed." I smiled softly. "And you shouldn't have saved me." He laughed quietly, shaking his head. "You ruined me, Amara. You made me want to live. Then live," I said, stepping closer, my hands finding his face. But not in fear, not anymore. He kissed my forehead, his breath warm against my skin. "If I could take back every sin, every drop of blood, I would. For you." But the world doesn't let men like him go easily. That night, the past found us. It started with a single phone call. Luca's face went pale when he saw the number. He stepped outside to answer, and when he came back, his eyes were cold again, the way they used to be. "What's wrong?" I asked. "They know I'm alive," he said quietly. I felt the air leave my lungs. "Then we run." He shook his head. "No, we end it." The next morning, he was gone. No note this time. Just the faint scent of his cologne on the sheets. I searched the house, the roads, called every number I had. Nothing. For 3 days, I waited. The house was too quiet, the air too heavy. Then one evening, I turned on the TV, and there he was on the screen, standing before flashing cameras, surrendering himself to the police. The man who ruled the underworld now stood in chains, his eyes steady, unafraid. And when they asked why he came back, he said one thing: for her. The world saw a monster confessing his sins. I saw the man who chose to burn his empire for love. Months passed. Trials began. The headlines called him the fallen king. But to me, he was still the man who once said, "I don't need redemption. I just need you to believe I can change." The last time I saw him was through the glass wall of the prison visiting room. His hair was shorter, his hands rougher, but his smile was still the same. "They'll let me rot here," he said softly. "Then I'll visit until the walls forget your name," I whispered. He chuckled, low and tired. "You deserve a life, Amara." "I already had one," I said. "You were it." Silence filled the room, heavy and alive, and for a moment, the world outside didn't exist. He leaned closer to the glass. "If I ever get out, I'll be waiting," I said before he could finish. And as the guards took him away, he turned once, eyes meeting mine, the smallest of smiles breaking through the ruin. 2 years passed before I saw him again. By then, I had built a quiet life in Florence. I taught art at a small gallery, lived in an apartment that overlooked the river, and tried to forget the way his name still echoed in my chest. The papers said he would never be released. That Luca Romano, once the most feared man in Italy, had vanished behind concrete walls forever. But love has a way of finding cracks in the impossible. It happened on a rainy evening. I was closing the gallery, turning off the lights, when I felt that presence, familiar and impossible. My hand froze on the door. "Amara," his voice. I turned, and there he was, standing in the doorway, drenched, a storm in his eyes. He looked older, sharper, but alive. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then I was in his arms, the world breaking apart around us. "You're supposed to be in prison," I whispered against his chest. He smiled faintly, that same tired, dangerous smile I'd loved and hated. "I was, until they tried to kill me there too." I pulled back, searching his face. "You escaped?" He nodded, his voice low. "With help. People who owed me. People who still believe I can make things right." "Make what right?" "The past," he said simply. "And us." He took my hand and pressed it to his heart. It was beating fast, real, alive. "I told you I'd find you." I wanted to be angry. I wanted to scream at him for vanishing, for risking everything again. But all I could do was hold him tighter. "You shouldn't have come," he smiled sadly. "You once told me to stop surviving and start living. I'm trying." That night, we didn't sleep. We talked until dawn, until the rain turned into sunlight. He told me how he faked his death in prison, how the people he once protected turned against him, how one last name still haunted him, Giovanni Moretti, the man who ordered the hit on me. "He's still alive," Luca said, eyes dark. "And he won't stop until I am gone." I felt the old fear return, the cold truth that love with him was never safe. "Then let's run," I said, voice trembling. "Let's disappear for real this time." But Luca shook his head. "I can't keep running. Not while he's breathing." And that was when I realized what he had really come for. Not just to find me, but to end everything. Days passed like hours. We hid in a safe house near Lake Como, waiting, watching. I saw the old Luca return, the strategist, the ghost of the underworld, but there was something new in him now, something human. He'd stop in the middle of plans to brush my hair aside, to trace the line of my jaw, to whisper, "You're my piece in a world that never had any." The night of the final reckoning, the sky was heavy with thunder. He kissed me once before he left. "If I don't come back, don't," I interrupted, tears in my voice. "You will," he smiled faintly. "I hope you're right." And then he was gone, swallowed by the storm. Hours crawled by. I paced, waiting for the sound of footsteps, a car, a call, anything. When the door finally opened, it wasn't Luca. It was one of his men, bruised and bleeding. "It's over," he said. My heart stopped. "Where is he?" He made sure Moretti didn't walk away. But he didn't either. The world tilted. I didn't hear the rest. The sound of rain against the window became the sound of my heartbeat breaking. They buried him quietly. No headlines, no ceremony. Just a grave under a cypress tree overlooking the water. Weeks passed before I could bring myself to go there. I stood by the grave, the wind brushing my hair, the lake glimmering in the distance. I placed a single white rose on the stone. "I told you to live." I whispered. You stubborn, beautiful fool. And then, as I turned to leave, I saw a letter tucked beneath the flowers, my name written in his handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. It said, Amara, if you are reading this, I did what I promised. Moretti is gone. So am I, for now. But love is not a prison. It's a choice. And if there's any mercy left in this world, maybe we'll meet again in another life, one without blood, without fear, without walls. Until then, live, for both of us. I pressed the letter to my chest, and for the first time in years, I smiled through tears, because somehow, I knew this wasn't the end. Somewhere out there, beyond the noise of this cruel world, his story wasn't over. And neither was ours. Like and follow for more.